My name is Ian Spring. I'm 33 years of age. I come from Ireland, but I'm happily living in Germany for the last 7 years. I'm now married to my beautiful Bavarian wife, and since I was a little child, I was always fascinated with photography and history. And those things have come together to create this wonderful new project called PIXPAST. I started collecting actually when I started university. I was 19 years of age, and I came from the countryside in Ireland, and we didn't have internet access, so I really didn't have too much exposure or experience. And when I was in university, we had for the first time, or I had for the first time, internet access. And one of the things that was really coming onto the market at that time was eBay. I know it sounds a little bit funny, but it's true. Um, and basically, I discovered through eBay that there was people around the world that actually had original color film from the Second World War or this period of time, that they were willing to sell it and that it was available to be purchased. Of course, I didn't have so much money. I had a very little budget at the time. I don't come from a rich family, but I thought this was incredible that this rare material could actually be quite easily purchased and found around the world. So I bought a little bit of material, and I found it fantastic and absolutely fascinating that private people had taken private color photography or color photos of this period of time, and it was a hidden secret documentation of a fascinating and horrifying part of European and world history. And I just thought it was incredible that you had the privilege to see that from a new perspective and a new depth. And just the fascination of something like that, and the opportunity to be able to buy and purchase material and find material like that was just an incredible thing for me, and something that really got me interested. And I got hooked, basically. I got into it, I got started it, and you couldn't stop me from then on. So that was it. It's actually a funny story, because I have come from what you could call a poor family. I had to self finance, and I did that by actually buying small, very cheap, very affordable antiques on eBay, and going up to antique markets in Dublin every month with massive big boxes full of antiques in the bus, and dropping everything onto the table. And people were amazed what I was finding and what I was selling. And I was able to generate every single month two, three, four, five, 600 euros, and that was enough to finance my collection, and that was enough to make sure that I had enough when I got an interesting offer for rare color material. Without that creativity and without that chance, this would have never happened. This collection, this would have gone to different people around the world, and that's the main reason why I was able to finance this project. I was able to build up such a large collection because I was very, very, very passionate. I really got hooked from an early stage, and I simply bombarded everyone around the world with emails, with telephone calls. I contacted every antique shop in England, in France, in Germany, in Italy, and said, "Do you have this material? If not, would you please keep me in mind?" And when you contact enough people and you contact enough collectors around the world, of course they will slowly come back to you and offer you material. And because there wasn't a big market, and because everyone didn't realize this material existed, they came back normally offering you, either they would donate the material to you because they saw you were so interested and so excited, or they would offer it to you for a very, very, very affordable price. And because of that, and because of that contact network that I built up in the first few years, I was able to build up thousands. I was able to find thousands and thousands of individual color slides and color film from the 1930s and 1940s that otherwise would never have been discovered. Most of the material, of course, comes from America and Germany because they were the two main countries developing colour film in the 1930s. But one thing that has really surprised me through all the material I've discovered and I've found is that at least 30% of all my material comes from bins and recycling centres because, of course, a lot of people don't value this historical material, and of course they throw it away, they put it in the bin. So a lot of good people have found material actually lying in the bin or on the side of the road. One of my one of my favorite stories is actually a young student 5 years ago in the island of Madeira. He was walking back from school and he actually found two large boxes of slides on the side of the road. He took them up in his hands and he looked at them and he saw soldiers and war and Russia. And he said, okay, these might be interesting for someone. These have a value somehow. He was able to find me on the internet and contact me, and he donated these images. Of course, it was ridiculous. When I received these images, there was incredible material, incredibly historically important material. And that's not the only example of where people have found this material basically ready to be destroyed. So I'm very happy that at least 30% of my collection has been rescued from recycling centres and bins around the world. Of course, it makes you think how much material is being wasted and thrown away, and I try not to think about that, but it is very good that through my efforts, through my research and through my contacts, that I have actually been able to preserve thousands and thousands of very historical images for the future from being destroyed. When we receive slides, when we receive slides, we normally have to first catalog them. We give each slide a number so that we can track it and we can keep it in our archive, because sometimes slides on their frames, paper or metal, they have descriptions or locations or dates, and this of course is very important information to keep connected with the picture. So we keep that together. We very carefully take out the film out of the slide frames, because if you take them in the slide frames, you have an effect called the Newton effect, where the images are distorted. So we have to take the original film out very, very carefully. When we have that, we put it into a new modern plastic frame without glass, and we use the latest technology in scanning to scan that at a massive high resolution. The reason why we do it at such a high resolution is because we want to do it one time, and we want to do it one time correct, so that we have all the information captured and preserved for the future. We don't have to do it again. After we have that, we have it on our computers. We can sit down and we can digitally restore the images. Of course, some images are quite good condition. They have a few scratches or a little bit of dust, and this is very, very little work to clean and restore. But of course, during wartime, a lot of images are damaged from heat, from water, from moisture, from temperature, and these images, they lose a lot of color, or they lose a lot of sharpness, or they are simply scratched. And sometimes we have to invest a lot of time in scanning these images and restoring them digitally. But it's a part of our business and it's a part of the process. And of course, we're going to try and make it more efficient going into the future when you have so many images. But it's a lot of work, but it's well invested. When we have the images, of course, we have to do a lot of research, because we're without basically a picture without location or who's in it or where it's been taken, it has very little interest or historical importance or value. So of course we spend a lot of time researching where the photographs were taken, from which unit, from what town, what city, what people are involved. And because we have a fantastic expert actually in research in our team, he's able to find the smallest information. So instead of just having a picture of a church taken in the Ukraine in 1942, we can say which street it is, when it was taken, which buildings are shown, and this is maybe not the most relevant or information that you would think you need, but when you have this deeper information, this deeper research, and it's all searchable on PIXPAST and through Google and through different search engines, you have the potential for local people, for local historians in all different villages and towns around the world to find these incredible pictures and to find us. And that gives us an opportunity to work together with a lot of very interesting people. So this research, it of course gives the pictures a lot of value, but it also makes it much more easily findable from people around the world, and that's very, very important for us. Um, no, actually, thankfully not. Haven't had any problems here in Germany. Um, of course, the how would you say it? The You have to be careful here in Germany with the history because it's still a very relevant topic. There's a lot of people that see it in a wrong way. They're scared of the history. The benefit of coming from another country, for example, Ireland, is because we were neutral, we weren't directly involved in the history of the Second World War. Well, not directly. Um, we can look at it from a more even perspective from all sides, and we see it, the Irish and other nationalities, as a part of world history. We don't see it as something to be scared of. We see it something that we should learn from. Um, so I come from a different perspective where you should preserve the history and you should learn from the history, and that's why what we're doing is very, very very important. Um, in Germany, it's still a very, very hot topic, and we don't want to offend anyone. So, of course, when you are preserving this type of material, war related, a lot of it, of course, is war related, you have to be very careful and you have to be very respectful. And we want to do that. Thankfully, up to now, we've had no problems, and we really work very, very hard that we keep a very neutral, fair perspective on this material. And we're not interested in supporting politics or going against politics. We simply want to preserve history, and we want to do it because we're located here in Germany, so that's our base. But hopefully into the future people will respect us because we respect them. Because PixPass is getting bigger at the moment and more popular around the world, we're doing more interesting projects. We've done at the moment a few interesting projects with French television, for example, different historical documentaries. We are searching for more contact with documentary and television because it's a very interesting use of photography in our archive. We're also working intensively on two different history projects at the moment, or book projects, excuse me. Of course, they take time. You have to do a lot of research behind these images, and of course, a lot of cleaning. Some of these images are very badly damaged because they've been badly stored or poorly photographed sometimes. These take a lot of time, but we have two projects coming, hopefully end of this year or middle of next year. Hopefully they will be out on the market, not only here in Germany, but actually in American English-speaking countries as well. Currently organizing some new projects for French television at the moment. And of course, PixPass itself is always growing bigger and bigger. We're also doing some interesting cooperative work with Axel Springer and Ullstein, Getty Images. They're very, very interested in what we're doing and our archive that we've built up to date. And those are currently the projects. But as PixPass grows and expands, more people are coming to us with suggestions and ideas. Wow, guys, you could do this, this, and this, or we could do this, this, and this. So it's kind of the snowball effect. It's getting bigger and faster, bigger and faster. So it'll be very interesting and very exciting to see what kind of projects we do in the next few years. It'll be great fun. I'd have to say there's a lot of really amazing material in my archive. Two collections that would come to mind straight away is a few years ago I was able to acquire a fantastic collection of, I think, 750 color slides from a Catholic priest who filmed the Second World War from 1939 Poland to 1944 Russia, as a basically as a diary in color photography. And the interesting and the fascinating thing about that collection is that because he was a Catholic priest, there was no restrictions. He was allowed to photograph everything, and he did. So he tried to capture the reality of this time, and this type of collection, complete and documenting the entire war, is basically never been seen before. This, of course, is something that I'm going to try with PIXPAST to produce as a book, because this story has to be shown and has to be shared around the world. This is something people will not believe until they see it. The second collection that I have to say is one of my favorite treasures is actually a recent collection. A very, very nice woman from Nuremberg this year actually phoned me, and she said, "Are you interested in a collection from Erwin Rommel's color slides?" And I was a little bit confused, and I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, my dad was the private photographer from Erwin Rommel in Africa, and would you be interested in his photo collection?" Of course, I was very excited with this idea. I traveled straight over and met this woman. She just displayed to me, or showed to me on the table, this wonderful, historically momentous collection of color photography from the German Africa Corps in Africa. Finding material from this period and from this area of war is actually very difficult because of the conditions. It wasn't very suited for color photography. And something like that, where you don't believe it exists, this type of material, but then it does. If someone phones you or someone sends you an interesting email and you discover something incredible, something that looks like it was photographed yesterday, and for example, the private color photography from Erwin Rommel's Africa Corps is one example of where I say this is an absolute true treasure. Of course, this is another collection that we really hope in the next 1 to 2 years we really want to get into a book format, because it just is so historically important, and the image quality is fabulous, and we know that this will be a fantastic historical book for future generations. So this is two projects and two treasures that we really hope we can share with people into the future. Up to now, we've been able to publish our first book, which was Leipzig in Farbe, or for English speakers, Leipzig in Color. The reason we did that book is because we were based in Leipzig, and we were able to do a lot of kind of advertisements in newspapers. We were able to find a lot of really great material from very helpful and very interesting people. And we were able to have such a great collection of material that we basically had to make this book. There was just too much material. And what was interesting with that first book that we published is that we didn't want to sell it as a war book. We weren't interested in selling it as a military book. We wanted to simply show Leipzig as a city, how it was, how people lived, children playing, people going into shops, people going into bakeries, people sitting down having a cup of tea. We wanted to show the real life. We didn't want to censor anything. If there was some political symbols or something, that was okay. That was the time. But we didn't want to censor it, but we also wanted to just show the normal life of the Leipziger and of the city. And because of that mentality, we got a lot more support, and a lot more people donated material and helped us with the research, because they were really excited and they really, really liked the idea. And that turned out to be a really beautiful, beautiful book production that we're very, very, very proud of. Um, and because that was so successful and so well received, we're looking at doing other interesting book projects at the moment based around cities, for example, like Vienna, like Prague, like Paris. We have so much crazy, amazing material that shows all life perspectives, everything from military, of course, civilian, and sometimes even the civilian life is much more interesting than the military, being honest. It's a very diverse world, and we hope to use that material, and we hope to produce some very nice city photo books into the future. My idea is that I always believe that if you have a color photograph, or if you have a photograph, it has really very little value. But if you can digitize it, if you can put it online, if you can make it that people can share and help and research information, it has a value. Maybe not a monetary value, but it has a value for people. And the idea is, I really wanted to get away from the old mentality of a collector or a photo collector, where everything, all these historical treasures are put in a box and hidden away from the world. I want to do in the complete other direction. I want to take all these historical pictures, these photographs, and I want to put them online. I want people to find them, and I want people to see them. I want people to learn from them and enjoy them and laugh and cry and give us input and tell us where these pictures were taken, when these pictures were taken. And I want these historical images to be used and to live. And that's why PIXPAST as a company, as a website, is so important, because it creates an open platform where people can enjoy the collection, they can get involved in the collection, they can use the collection, and this gives these whole images a new life and a new perspective. And also it guarantees that these images will live for forever, basically. As long as there is internet and as long as there's a digital world, these images will be alive, and people from around the world, in any country from Africa to Canada to China to India, they can click, they can see them, they can see these villages, these towns, these locations, these people, and they can enjoy that and they can get involved, and it makes this history come alive. Um, what's important for our work and what is our plan for the next 10 years? Of course, we would like to do more books, different city books and different topics. We have so much of a wealth of material that we can cover so many things. For example, fashion, something that people don't talk about so often. We want to do more work with our television partners in America and in France, so that's very important for us. Um, on a more principle basis, what we really want to do is we want to remind people of what has happened in the past, because we think we should learn from the past. I mean, from the mistakes that have been done. If we can learn from that, maybe, and I hope, or we hope as PIXPAST, that we don't repeat them. We don't repeat our stupid mistakes. And that war is one of the worst human activities that can happen. And if we can, through using, distributing, sharing this material, we can remind people how awful, absolutely dreadful this time is or was, that maybe they can think and maybe they're a little bit more careful next time, and that we can help prevent this kind of disaster to happen again. In so doing, and that is one of our main principles, we of course support groups that fight against racism, for example. We are very proud supporters from the Simon Wiesenthal Center in America. These guys are doing great work to fight in different ways racism around the world, and they're basically doing what we're trying to do. They're trying to remind people not to repeat history, and that's a big part of what we want to do, and that's a part of our principles, that we will always keep and what we always want to keep is to just remind people of the past, that they learn, and that we can have a better, happier future altogether.